Hi everybody, welcome to Football-Oranje. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Frank de Boer appointment as Netherlands manager. The appointment which I don't think many of us were expecting, and probably not one that we all wanted. But we'd like to know if you're watching with us live, or if you're watching this back a few days later and it's not a live podcast anymore, then give us your comments as to what you think about the Frank de Boer appointment. Do you think that he is the right man for the job, or do you think that he's really not the right man for the appointment? I know that Michael Bell here is sitting here thinking, no, he's not the right man for the job at all. I'm trying to be a bit more open-minded about it, but I really don't think it's going to be positive either. So let us know in the comments what you think. I'm Michael Statham, and of course, as I just mentioned, with Mike Bell tonight. And we're going to, be kind of talking through the positives and negatives and bringing up your comments on screen as to whether you think Frank de Boer is going to be a good successor for Ronald Koeman. And of course, Koeman did all the hard work. He's implemented all these new players into the squad and really crafted lots of world-class players into something that could be a serious contender at the next Euros in the summer. Of course, it was postponed by a year, and we fancied the Netherlands to do quite well. Koeman then got his dream job at Barcelona. Now we're in this position where we've ended up with Frank de Boer in charge. Mike, tell me what you think. Is this one that's going to last till next summer? And do you want us to see this being a successful appointment? Someone who's going to lead the Netherlands to the latter stages of the Euros?
Well, for me, I expected this. It's the KNVB being very conservative, being very safe. It's the same what he did after Van Gaal left. They appointed somebody that, and Gus Hiddink, then Blind. It was just two people that wouldn't rock the boat like Van Gaal did. It's an appointment that does sort of make sense in the fact that he's Dutch and he's available and he knows the players. But then when you look at his record for any of the clubs that he's managed since Ajax, it's terrible. I mean, we've all seen the video of Jose Mourinho calling him the worst manager in the Premier League history, and it's true, he was. You know, he had 5 games, he lost 4 of them, and didn't score a single goal. Then he went to Atlanta United, got sacked after a season and a half, amid talk of him falling out with players, being too arrogant. Maybe that'll work with a Dutch national team squad because we know how arrogant some Dutch players can be. Maybe that works there, but it didn't work at Milan, didn't work at Crystal Palace, and it didn't work at Atlanta United. And for the KNVB to then give the job of the national team to somebody that's been sacked 3 times in a row and was even in a decline at Ajax in his final year, it's a bit of a joke. It's meant to be the biggest, most prestigious job in Dutch football, and then they didn't even ask many people or interview many people. It's just basically, I think Frank de Boer was their choice from the start. I think Frank Rijkaard was a smokescreen because they knew that he wouldn't come out of retirement, and Pierre Bosch, his name was put forward, but they knew that he would never leave by Leverkusen again. I don't think Van Gaal even came into consideration, even though he said that he would do it. Henk ten Kat, Ruud, these all names got put forward, but they were just never in the running. I think that Frank de Boer's name was always the number one from the start, and yeah, we wait and see. Obviously, I want the Dutch national team to do well, so I'm not, pinning my hopes on them failing and getting sacked because I don't want that. I want Netherlands to win every single game, and I hope that they do. And I hope that we're all proved wrong and Frank de Boer is a massive success, and this is just a job that works, because some people say that international football is different from club football, and maybe it'll be a success that way. But his tactics are boring. His demeanour with players is arrogant. I worry about what happens now that you have 2 sort of coaches that are tactical based, with Dwight Lodewages. He was the tactical one, with Koeman being the man manager, whereas now you've got de Boer, who's not good with man management, and Lodewages is not good with man management. Who's going to look after the players? It's just one of these appointments that on paper is shocking and shouldn't happen. But it was the obvious one for the KNVB. I think once it happened, you're like, Frank de Boer is available, oh, it's got to be him. The KNVBs aren't forward thinking, they're just trying to protect themselves, and this is what we end up with. And we just need to hope that the players are good enough to still win games, even with de Boer's tactics and way of playing, because we don't want to write off our chances already at the Euros without actually seeing us play.
Of course, yeah. It's fascinating to think that de Boer was their choice on the off end, just because of the amount of names that were mentioned along the way. the Van Gaals, the Ten Carters, the Rijkaards. But yeah, it's interesting how you think that maybe none of them were really linked all along. None of them were actually true, and therefore De Boer was the one all along that they wanted. It's weird though how that took so long, considering that if he maybe was their first choice, but maybe we've already seen his influence with the team by selecting Davy Klaassen in the pre-selection. I wonder if he's had some doing with that before he's actually signed the contract. Yeah, it's not positive just because of how poorly he's done since his final season with Ajax. Really, getting sacked from the 3 jobs after that, and not in a good way either. Not like the bravely battling relegation or something with what is a poor squad. Actually, with Crystal Palace, he had some tools to work with and just lost all these games. Couldn't score a goal. And at Atlanta United, being called arrogant. You want someone who's going to be the boss of the team, but to then push the tactics out the way he did it's usually concerning. And as you said, Mike, we want it to work. Of course we do. We want to see the Netherlands do well, but I just don't see how his tools can work with the team at his disposal. Like how is he going to get the best out of Frenkie de Jong? I'm just really not sure that he will. Let's get some of your comments on the screen because I can see that more and more coming in now. And let's see if we can have a bit of a debate here. Abdul, thanks for your comment. We'll be able to make a quick judgment after the final selection. If Frank de Boer keeps Babel and Klaassen in his squad, then we'll know where we're going. Yeah, and we've been highly critical of the likes of Babel, Strootman, and Klaassen as well in the past, but now he's back in the squad. Matt says, thanks for doing these videos, guys. And of course, we do really enjoy doing these when we have the time to do so, and we'll keep them coming for you. John says, it's hard to have confidence in Frank de Boer. I keep thinking about Mourinho's quip that he's the worst manager in the history of the Premier League. And it was a huge mistake to run past Louis van Gaal. He's far better at developing talent, honestly, and his philosophy can hold a team together much better than De Boer's ad hoc tactics. And finally, from King Jia, Frank de Boer mainly seemed to have failings out with players, staff, board during his other spells in the past, but he doesn't think it will be an issue with the Dutch players and the squad. Wow, that's a fascinating opinion. What do you think about that, Mike? Do you think that his actual style with players is going to suit the role as a Netherlands manager?
It's hard to tell at the moment. Obviously, I had some of these players with Ajax, and it seemed to go well at some points. But this case that he comes in really arrogant, then yeah, it might piss some of them off. I mean, we all know that Memphis Depay is probably a difficult character to lead. And he was outspoken about Louis van Gaal in his book, whereas Ronald Koeman really took him under his wing and he excelled. How is De Boer going to manage somebody like Memphis? And De Boer was a great defender in his day. So you think of people like De Ligt, Van Dijk, yeah, they can learn something from De Boer. But for me, like what's tactically going forward and attacking wise, what's he going to teach the likes of Ihataren or Frenkie de Jong or Calvin Stengs? I know Calvin Stengs is his son-in-law, so maybe. But like Myron Bower, how are they going to learn from Frank de Boer, and how are they going to learn from Lodewijk? You just wonder if another assistant's going to get brought in. I know Ruud van Nistelrooy is joining the team in the lead up to the Euros. He'll help with the attackers. But it seems that De Boer's not been allowed to bring in his own coaching staff. He has to kind of stick with the ones that he's got at the moment. I know the Telegraph said that he might be able to bring in one, so we'll see who he picks. I'd be interested to know. Ronald De Boer was saying that he would do it, but I don't think he's allowed to because he's his brother. But we'll see what happens there. If it's somebody, an ex-player like a Wesley Sneijder or something like that, just to come in, work with the team closely, keep it a fun unit. Because if you've got, as I said, even Rafael van der Vaart came up and said that communication is not a strong point of Frank de Boer. Some players respect him, but he's not very good at communicating. So we'll see how that works. We won't know until the first games. The first games are in October. The squad isn't even finalised yet. They'll get finalised next week. De Boer's press conference is on Friday, so we have to see what he says. But yeah, at the moment there's just so many doubts about the national team going forward. I think a year before the Euros, if KNVB wanted to keep it stable and keep fans on side, then this is the wrong appointment, because it's just gonna. You saw the reaction as soon as he was appointed. It was, Crystal Palace fans, Atlanta United fans, and Milan fans all in disbelief that he's managed to get this job after his failings of the past few years. So yeah, we wait and see, but it's holding out hope for something that he's not been able to prove in any of his jobs.
It's one of those things though where they say, for example, that you could put any manager in charge of like a Man City or Liverpool, you're still going to do really well with them, which makes some people sometimes doubt how good a coach Pep Guardiola is, considering he's only ever had these top jobs. Other people would argue completely against that and would actually say that it's the manager that really makes a difference with a team. Perhaps if we spin on its head, and like when he was manager of Ajax, another fourth season he wasn't quite as strong, but he did win a few titles with Ajax. I know that the Eredivisie at the time perhaps wasn't quite so strong, but what were the positives for him when he was in charge of Ajax all these years ago? Because at the time, I don't think you would have said he was a bad manager. I remember, like, for example, the one game where he had the players, I think they were winning 5-1 against NEC Nijmegen. And I think there's quite a good video where he's like having a go at all the players and you need to do this, you do this. He's obviously quite demanding, but then is he too demanding? Back to the question anyway. What do you think were his strengths when he was manager of Ajax, and are they relatable for the Dutch national team too?
It's hard to look back on that time, but I think that it tactically has the same sort of philosophy as Ajax. So it's keep possession, 4-3-3, build up from the back, and with the players that he had at the time, Ajax were the strongest team in the league, and it worked out really well for him. But you got to look at, he had successes with Ajax, but what did he do in Europe? Literally every single year they won the league, they got knocked out in the group stages of the Champions League. He did nothing to get them progressing. Then you see after he left, what Peter Bosz did, taking them to the Europa League final, and what Erik ten Hag's managed to do and taking them further there. I think that at the time, the Eredivisie wasn't the strongest. I know that De Boer was managing Ajax when there was some stuff going on in the background that wasn't very helpful, and you could say that he did a good job there. But yeah, I don't think Ajax at the time, they were the strongest team, but they didn't progress because of De Boer's tactics. I think they were just the best team in a poor league at the time. I don't think if you popped Frank de Boer in charge of Ajax, say 2 seasons ago, they would have reached the Champions League semi-finals. I think Ten Hag's a much better tactician and coach, whereas De Boer isn't. And I think his tactics is very, very cagey, very possession-based, very defensive, very boring, really, which has been what Atlanta United, even in their statements after sacking him, said he's just not playing the type of football we want to see. And we'll see how that works with the national team, because I know hand on heart, right now we can't all say that Ronald Koeman's Netherlands played the best football. We can't say that Louis van Gaal's Netherlands played the best football. And there were some games that were torrid, some games that it was a bit passing it around without much happening, then getting a cheeky goal. I think a lot of Van Gaal's success was built around that game against Spain. When you look back on it, you think, wow, Van Gaal hammered Spain, but games after that, you're a bit like, like the 0-0s and against Costa Rica. So I think it's going to be another case of Netherlands building up from the back, being very patient, not an exciting all-out attack 4-3-3, which we would have seen if we had Peter Bosz, basically.
Then I suppose with the strengths of the players that we do have, that I don't think that you can set up with a re-attacking team. I don't know how quite you could have made a team that could have scored loads and loads of goals against half decent teams. With the wingers at the moment aren't the best, and there's obviously young players coming through. Or will maybe you saying that a more attacking coach would give these guys a chance? Because even though Frank de Boer was manager of Ajax, he did have to play some young players, but I think you're kind of under pressure to do so. I don't think he always was giving these players a chance. And like you say, the football was pretty boring.
Yeah, especially last year, he was in charge of Ajax, and I think it was in the last year that they got hammered by Pegsville in the cup final. I think it was. So his tactics aren't great, but he's got better players to work with now. I think the national team's at a point where we do have a lot of talented players. But it's just to see what sort of formation. I'm intrigued to see what squad he picks, really, because I want to see who he wants in the squad. If he just goes with what Koeman's been picking, he might just go along with the same names. But I think it'll be very evident that he's having an impact if he does bring Davy Klaassen back in, because that'll be him picking the players that he knows from his time at Ajax, really. Because Davy Klaassen hasn't done anything at Werder Bremen to warrant a place in the national team ahead of, say, a Koop Miners, even like a Davy Proper. These players are much farther ahead of him. Even a Hatterin, I'd rather see him get capped, especially after rumours that he could be thinking about switching to Morocco after being left out the last two games. But I think the Netherlands squad will be stronger this time around because of players that we're missing. De Vrij's back, which means that Veltman should be playing, and Donyell Malen's back. So he's been firing in goals for PSV already. He scored 2 tonight against Mura in the Europa League. So I'm excited to see him come back into it, because for me, he's a better forward than a Bergwijn or a Promise up front.
No, that's right. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do with it, because I think what the KMVB wanted was a coach that could just carry on what Koeman was doing, not really like changing it as such. I think they very much want to keep that. It is quite a solid team, isn't it? It's very defensively compact, and they do tend to work on the counter attack. So I guess they want to try and keep that going. And it's I wouldn't call it a safe choice, would you? Making De Boer manager, but it's not out there. It's not bringing Van Gaal back. It's not choosing a foreign coach who's never done international football. Something like that. Like it's not safe, but it's someone they know, and it's also a very good former Dutch footballer. So I think that there's reasons kind of stack up for him, but given his impact the past few years, I just don't see it being a good appointment. And actually, when we put a poll on the Twitter page, I think only 60% of you said that you weren't happy with him being appointed as manager. And I think if you said the same for Koeman a few years back when he was appointed, then it would have been a very different reaction. Had a lot more on the positive side. We had a few questions via Twitter. One was about why didn't Erik ten Hag want the job? And I'm assuming that was just because of his role at the minute with Ajax, and he's too engrossed with that. And I'm pretty sure that he also wants to move on to a job such as a Bayern Munich or like a Barcelona, like Koeman's done. I think he's waiting for that kind of step, isn't he? And I know it's another question as well. This is quite a good one. Is the De Boer target to keep him until the World Cup in 2022 and to like experiment with some of the younger players, or is he going to keep what he quotes as the Koeman recipe? Which I think is quite a good point, because is De Boer that safe option that's going to keep things the same for the next couple of years?
Yeah. Again, we'll see when the squad's announced next Friday. I think if you're looking at the talents that are coming through at the moment, you could probably say that the squad's pretty much set for Euro 2020. I can't see anyone really breaking in that's not in this provisional squad. Maybe someone like Xerxes, if he actually got a game, but he's not going to get a game for Bayern Munich regular enough to actually warrant a place. Or you're looking at some of the players that are doing well in their Eredivisie. Gakpo could come into it. Outsiders, maybe Joey Veerman here in Beans, he's been excellent for them, but is he really going to get picked? Probably not. So I think that Frank de Boer will definitely stick with the sort of team that Koeman's been playing recently, especially for the first few matches. Then maybe as the season goes along, he'll be looking at other players coming through. But yeah, I can't see big major changes between now and Euro 2020. But then going ahead to the World Cup, then he's got to try and find some of these new younger players, especially up front. If you want to start playing with a more central striker, then he's got to give some of these younger guys a chance, like a Malen or a Boadu.
Yeah, I hope that he does, because there's these players that are on the cusp now that are hitting 20, 21 years old, or like late teens, and they're just ready to go for it, and they can be the new regulars of the team, especially with that creative spark, new striker. Yeah, hopefully they're coming through really soon, and I hope De Boer gives them the chance. I don't know if there's anything else you wants to add, Mike, before we finish, but it's been good having people watching along live and commenting live. And if they're not watching live, they can, of course, leave a comment below, and we'll definitely get back to you on it. Let's start a conversation in the comment section. What do you think about the Frank de Boer appointment? But yeah, is there anything else from you, Mike, before we finish?
No, again, it's not the appointment that I would have picked. It's not the one that most people would have picked. But again, we just need to hope that the KNVB know what they're doing for the first time in a while, and it just manages to be a success. And we all want the Dutch national team to do well, so we just need to try and hope that de Boer's learned from his failings at the past three clubs. As Rafa van der Vaart said, this is his last chance. Where does he go if this is an epic failure? And he gets sacked by the national team. What can he do from then? He's literally just proved that he can't do any job. So we'll see. And hopefully it's just the right appointment. And we'll see next month against Mexico if it's the right one. And we'll see next week in the squad selection. So yeah, it's not an exciting appointment, but we just need to hope that it works.
Yeah, I don't think there's much room for hiding either with this, because the Dutch have been doing well, and he has to only improve that. If it gets worse, we know that it's a de Boer appointment because of the hard work that Koeman's done. Well, thanks, Mike, for coming onto this tonight, and thank you everyone for watching. And you can, of course, leave us a like. And if you're new to our YouTube channel, then you can give us a subscribe so you don't miss any more of these reaction sort of or podcasts in future. Yeah, and thanks for joining us. Bye for now.
Bye.